Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the rank 1 Protoss in the world. Not the one we deserve, but the one we need right now in the blue. A hero. Facing off against the former world champion Zerg in the red, we have Rogue in a best of 5 Protoss versus Zerg semi-finals to the $10,000 global $15,000 global StarCraft League Season 2. And before we get started, it'd be incredible. You could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. And we got the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? 1,860 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the probe goes in, and the probe comes out. You can't explain that. But able to block the second base and make it that much harder for the Zerg to comfortably, at least semi-comfortably expand and deal with the depths, deal with the oracles, because while Hero may not write the book or even be able to read it, he still follows some standard trends. And an oracle is on the way, the adept is in the main, stretches a drone into a spore crawler, and gonna start working on some of the Zerglings. And there's only 2 lings, which is not enough. The Queen takes issue with it, but there's gonna be some... A nice little dodge at the last second. The back and forth, and Hero's pylon is almost exactly on the location that you would expect it to go, because the mapmaker was so gracious to include a little indicator there where you can place your pylon and comfortably wall off. Which, you know, explains a whole lot. Well, 2 adepts now, joined up with the secondary one and threatening. And look at the worker count before anything else has happened, before the oracles come in, before a single drone has died. By forcing that third base and threatening with the adepts and oracles, Hero is already 5 workers ahead. And he could compound that lead by taking out more, but for now, just having the adepts and the oracle in between the bases is making Rogue's life quite difficult, to say the least. The adepts try to jostle back, don't quite succeed. One gets away. Only a queen to defend. Another spore crawler will help to dodge and ends up getting one for the road. But Hero already has his third base halfway done, warping some adepts, and with the oracles overhead, there was already very little chance of being able to counterattack. But with even more oracles in this deplorable sort of opener, I'm not being rhetorical. And this isn't something written in the oracles, but instead, it's not something you can easily ignore. Well, don't be sorical. Hero. Well, he stops at 3. The triumvirate. And Rogue, still not too many lings. 10 more, 18 more on the way. Almost took it as a challenge, it seems. But 18 lings, he managed to get up to 50 drones, but is kind of stalling out the tech. There's no lair on the way, instead opts for +1 melee attack. Which, did he actually see the Evo chamber? No. That would be a bit of a giveaway for Hero, as +1 melee attack is a lot more focused on dealing with the next step of the Protoss. And if you don't blink, you might miss it. Thankfully for Hero, he's got blink on the way. Having the +1 melee lings means that stalkers are going to be significantly less effective. But the big issue with Zerglings is how much larva it takes to get a reasonable number. Now, it doesn't matter how many Zerglings you have. Well, it does. If you're able to just get through the wall. Hero, that adept is definitely not in a spot to block it. This adept, also not so much, but kind of filters through, and oh my. Hero, filtering the Zerglings like a sieve, and actually gets a few of them for the cost of a force field and a sly smirk. Or whatever the Protoss equivalent is without a mouth. Eyebrows? Do they have eyebrows? The suggestion of them, I think. Moving on. We'll discuss this more later. Probably not. The Queens, trying to drive back the oracles, but still commanding attention. Slicing away some of the creep tumors. Storm is already in production, Rogue. He does have a lair completed, the Hydra Den, and the Baneling Nest in production, and he's taken the gold. And I'm not calling him a gold digger, but he's certainly not intent on minimizing his early resources, but instead on maximizing that economy. And with the 4th base already online, Hero might not think to look for it, and instead might be focused on dealing with this, but the Spore Crawler isn't quite done. He already lights up the oracles, so why not continue the fun? And the drones, 2 more. A couple... Wait, he canceled... Wait, no. He didn't cancel the Hydra Den. He finished the Hydra Den, and now is going for a Spire. Mutas. The surprise Mutas are usually the deadliest. He's building 4... He's building 4 Hydras. He's getting Hydra range. Well, usually you don't want to invest anything, any of your gas if you don't have to. Rogue may have done too good a job of hiding his tech. As Revelation spots the Spire, he put all of his tech literally behind the mineral line where the oracles couldn't easily see it. So that kept Hero looking around until he found the Spire. But actually, it feels like Rogue kind of playing both sides so he can't lose. Because the Spire was scouted and not the Hydras, Hero might not realize the magnitude of defense that Rogue can bring to bear. Theoretically. Practically, he's not there yet, as the Hydras are just now incrementing out. Hero has plenty of Stalker. Storm is done. The Oracles with plenty of energy. The Stasis going to thin some of it out. The Banelings just trickling in. Gets 1 Archon merge. The Storms coding it like the most dangerous force field. I am pretty sure that the Storms did more damage to Stalkers than they did to Hydras and Banes. And another Storm he just wades through. Overlord taken out. Archon picked off. And Hero got a little ahead of himself, and it will cost him. No, he's not going to stop. Rogue is at 84 drones. He's adding more, possibly just out of reflex, because that's already too many when it comes to dealing with this attack. But the Hydra count is high enough, at least on the creep, but without it... Oh, that was suspicious. Where did the Hydras come from? Why were you all the way over there? Is Hero really thinking about it? It could have just been an attempt at a flank, but does he have the intellectual curiosity? Did he notice? I believe he did. The Stalkers doing what they do best. Stalking. And blinking, I guess. Which, not exactly. I wouldn't put that on your resume, but still. The base, but the Hydras have already maneuvered. They've got speed finishing up soon, which will mean they're a lot more effective off of the creep. A Stasis, just in time, catches some of the Banelings. The Storm, a force field to melt through the rest. And Hero... Isn't Rogue the Zerg? But Hero the one with waves upon waves of units slowly drifting across and the Storms to cover. Both the front and the back, another Storm. The Banelings melting away. Some of them about to come out of Stasis. That's really not that many Stalkers. And many of them getting pincushioned by the Hydras. The Banelings come out of Stasis and take out many of the Zealots. And, well... A hive just started. A Lurker Den is done for Rogue. Hero keeps the aggression on. He's now tucked in very deep and very greedily. But the force field of the Stasis, he gets to the back corner. He doesn't get an Archon merge. Hero tried to have it all. But Rogue is going to send most of it to the unit's loss tab. He missed an Archon merge, an opportunity for some Storms. The Stasis wards are of dubious effect here. But that's not going to stop him from putting a fleet beacon into production behind all this. As despite the less than successful attacks, the fact he's being aggressive and preventing any sort of counter is already effective in and of itself. Takes down another Archon, but the Zealots come charging past. A couple Banelings. Hero just eats it on the creep, and the Zealots survive for the most part. And suddenly Hero has a supply lead, because of course he does. Rogue with 8 Lurkers in production, but is a long way until they get their range or their quick burrow upgrades, as the hive isn't even completed. The Oracles have stayed alive, possibly the longest I've ever seen Hero keep them alive. And with them, the Revelation to keep track and detection on the Lurkers, as well as potentially just threatening things in general. Hero keeping the aggression on, driving the creep back, and the Lurkers at bay. A mothership is in production to try to tie it all together. But Rogue has held. It hasn't been easy, but he still has the gold base. He still has exactly the same amount of workers, 81 apiece. But the gold base should give him, well, I was going to say an income lead, but it appears not quite as comfortable as he may have hoped. The Lurkers on either side. Hero right down the center. The Stasis saves the Templar at the last possible second. More Lurkers will burrow. The spines try to rip through, but the storms will soften the rest up. The queens are getting involved. The zealots eviscerate the drones. A dozen dead in the hatchery to boot. And the storms just zoning everything out. The zealots slicing through, and Hero behind it. He has Tempest in production. The mothership is nearly completed. And while Rogue may have most of his late game upgrades coming online, he's losing the economy with which to use them effectively. He's down 40 supply against a Protoss who's cut no corners. He's so well-rounded, he might as well be an emoji at this stage. And Hero. The Oracles. Wait, now he has 4. 4 Oracles. He hasn't lost a single one. They just kind of keep popping up. When one Oracle loves another Oracle very much. Well, save that revelation for later. Meanwhile, around the corner, though, the Lurkers don't care. Slices through. Rogue just tried to hold. Has he killed a single probe? No, not a single building. 222 Zerglings dead. Hero has kept his feet to the storm-based fire, and Rogue has had absolutely no room to escape it. He's barely survived throughout all this, but all it takes is one! Oh, it's a disaster! The Templar! Not all heroes wear capes, and neither do heroes, as the Templar are melted away. Still 4 or 5 of them remain, but that was exactly the sort of thing that Rogue needs like 2 or 3 more of in order to drag this into a more comfortable position. Not comfortable, just more comfortable. It's all relative. Hero with one of the most dramatic losses. He could have 8 Templar. And remember, the Banelings don't count because they succeeded. They weren't lost. It was 3 or 4 Templar, 3 or 4 Banelings for 8 Templar, and now he doesn't have detection. The Banelings are rolling through. The Lurkers are underneath. The Zealots will be exploderated by the Banes. The probes are next on the agenda, and Hero, in typical Hero fashion, has gone from the highest highs. And now he's been brought significantly lower as he plummets to 200 supply. What? How does he still have the same amount of probes he did? He lost probes, right? What? 1? I don't understand. The Zerglings get in, which is, well, he's going to scout exactly what he thought to see. And the Zealot, this is the furthest. If he goes one more step, that'll be the furthest he's ever been. The Zergling decides he doesn't like it. He's going to leave. And Hero still has the army to beat. Rogue has spores. The floor is Lurkers. But Storm doesn't care whether you're beneath it, above it, or right in between. Tectonic destabilizes. That anti-building damage for the Tempest. And this is an incredibly difficult position for the Zerg. Made only slightly easier when you can pick off Tempest and Templar for free. A legion of charge lots. Literally, what? 23 Zealots. I think every single one of them here making sure this base is incredibly dead yet again. The Tempests are forcing the issue. We've got some Vipers, but without enough energy for even Abduct to drag those Tempests into the Hydralisks. Storms and the Templar. Hero just kind of holding position here. He's got more cannons on the way back at home. And the Zealots will not be denied. The rally point for Rogue yanks in some of the Tempests, and yet again, Hero loses some of the most important units from his composition, but a stasis may save the day. The Lurkers will slice through the many cannons, but even more coming online. More cannons. He's got 2 robos in the front of everything, which means he's closer to the fight. It's just smart logistics. Hero has lost 50 Zealots, 15 Templar, 5 Tempests. But Rogue is scrambling. And the Zealots with +3 attack. There's +2 shield upgrades. Great for the Archons and good for everything else. The Zealots, wow. 5 Lurkers. You know what? Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice that Hero is willing to make. Loses about 20 Zealots to get another 10 drones, and who's to say that wasn't the right call? Another wall of cannons. The cannons per minute continues to raise. Why are you destroying your own pylon? The fickle mind of Hero. The eternal sunshine found there. Ah, spotless indeed. and just a wall of cannons. Is that all cannons? Does he even have a shield battery? Come on, have some variety. He's got one shield battery for flavor. Like a single crouton on top of a salad. Okay, that... Where did you find it? Why is there only one? It's more suspicious than if there were none. Why is there one crouton? And it's like clearly placed there. It's not mixed in. That's that shield battery. I'm just saying. Somehow Rogue survived. But, surviving and thriving are two very different things, as those zealots are learning. That one zealot is learning. But Hero doesn't have much in the bank. Losing the masses of Templar. Now, the army value, Hero is worth 1,500 more gas. Though slightly less minerals, as Templar and Archons, their natural progression, as they grow up and settle down. Or settle up, really. Depending on how you want to, how your Archon merge goes. Plus 3 shields. 20 cannons. He just keeps adding cannons. Like, you can't just... Well, there's a roach? Okay. Stalker wins. 19 kill Stalker with 1 HP at the Watchtower. Rogue gonna try to... well... More cannons might actually be the ticket. As here comes Hero. How do you stop this? That's a real question. I guess technically as a Spire, though he hasn't really used it. The cannons will sandbag the push somewhat, but Revelation, the Lurkers are forced to pull back. There's barely any anti-air whatsoever. 17 Hydras and that number dwindling by the second. Feedback on the Vipers. Parasitic Bomb will soften up and... Well, it'll damage the shields of the Tempest and not get much more done. The Lurkers broke through the wall of cannons, but it took quite an effort. The Lurkers are holding the line back at home. The Hydras are trickling in. 25 probes dead and counting. Hero does not actually have a 5th base, so Rogue is doing real damage here. But it still begs the question of how do you stop this? The Changelings? Hey, maybe we should try... crashing the capital ships into the ground. I'm just saying it worked before for one of us. I don't... And Toro Tassida. 2 immortals at a time. And when the smoke clears, such as it is... When the smoke clears, such as it is, as we went through a temporal distortion there, it seems... oh wow. We're all over the place. But Rogue has 11 Lurkers and 16 Hydras. There's still 7 Tempests with +2 attack. Which, well, unless he's able to get some choice of ducks like so, the Tempests on their own could beat. But Rogue is successfully stalling this out for now. But Hero, well, Hero is long distance mining, and he only has like 40 probes total. But finally, there and back again. But that's not enough Hydras. He has +2 attack for the Hydras, that's it. The Vipers. I think he finally has vision. Revelation gets a tag. The Lurkers are being chipped and chopped through. One of the Vipers obliterated by the Tempest. The few Hydras are on their way up. The Storms will melt away their HP. And Abduct secures another kill. But Rogue is just... Well, he just isn't. Hero walks up and wades through. And finally claims victory. After a surprisingly back-and-forth battle in game number 1. But Rogue constantly trying to survive, where Hero was constantly on the cusp of killing him. Maybe a couple times he was overcommitted. Losing a few Templar, a few Tempests. The units that are supposed to be anything but temporary. But Hero... somehow looked like the Zerg against one of the best Zergs in the history of the game. Some might incorrectly argue the best, but Rogue hung with him. But maybe Hero was just giving him enough rope. As we go into Celestial Enclave. Another, well, a very... So, Celestial Enclave features a worker-only path. Where there are some curious strategy, as he should well know, as a very common worker-only path enthusiast. Is he just gonna put a hatchery there? So Hero is not walling off the natural. He's expecting shenanigans. He put his first pylon on the high ground. Oh my, and he's scouting for it. Which Rogue, what? This is some... Wow. Okay, well, he's partially scouting for it. He just decides to expand there. So, they both expanded. Rogue very clearly knows the timing. Rogue had this planned out. I feel like Hero has definitely shown more games than Rogue has on this map. And this isn't the simple version. The Simpleton's peasant version. And Hero even scouting... Yeah, would be expanding here. Oh, he's checking. He's checking. But he's not seeing! Oh, no. Wait. Hero. He did not probe scout across the map. He's checking doors and corners. That's where they get you. And Hero has never figured out how to build a door. And he did not check all his corners. This proxy hatchery will be successful. It will complete completely unscouted. And not for lack of effort. Rogue has prepared. Spine crawlers? Wow. But Hero actually has one of the best possible builds to deal with this. He did not go one gate expand. He has 2 gates on the high ground. And it's kind of a surprise. He's building Adepts and getting a Stargate. Now, the obvious choice would be Stalkers here, but they cost more gas. The Adepts to try to buy... Oh, the Adepts to stop the creep! If he can't get the creep close, then the Spine Crawlers are less of a threat. He wants to stop the creep tumor. If he stops the creep tumor, he stops the rush. He at least slows it down. He has to know that creep tumor's everything. That's the most important creep tumor! Ah! He doesn't get it! I've come for my revenge! Brenda, quiet down! Oh, they can't talk back. They don't have mouths. That wasn't really my point! Shut up. The Spine Crawlers are on the way. He even has a Spore Crawler with it, but the Adept's body block. The shield battery's behind. A Void Ray is in production! A shield... Hero has... He was prepared for something like this. Though I'm not sure if he was prepared for this level of commitment. Rogue is putting a ring on this one. The Spine Crawlers are in range of some of the shield batteries. Zergling speed is completed. And the Zerglings working on that nexus to the north, but there's enough Adepts to actually isolate. And Hero still has enough of a unit count, and there's not that much anti-air. So 2 Void Rays would be quite a quandary here. He's going to lose the Nexus, which will mean he's still ahead economically. Lights up the Void Ray. Shield batteries keeping it in strong repair. Second Void Ray's in production. More shield batteries on the way, but the ones currently on the field are completely drained. He shades back. Another Spore Crawler moves up the first one. Rogue continues bashing his way forward. Lights up another Void. Recharges a shield battery. If he gets through, but he still has to deal with the Queens. The Adepts are dead. The shield batteries are under attack. And I think he's done it. The Zerglings are working their way through. The probes have to be pulled. Remember, Rogue still only has 17 drones and 1 base behind this. If Hero could somehow hold, but the Void Rays don't seem to be enough. More Spore Crawlers on the way. The probes, the energy on the shield batteries is pretty good, but not all of them can reach over the Nexus. He loses a gateway. The creep is touching the Nexus, which just kind of grosses everyone out. It doesn't do anything in particular besides let him move forward, but still. The Queens facing the Void Rays. The Void Rays take out the Spore Crawler. The knitting needles, though. As the queens, well, is there enough for a transfuse? Not quite. He throws it out onto another queen with the one that was targeted. But the spore crawlers are moving forward. The Zerglings are continuing production. Another queen is on the way. The shield batteries are almost entirely drained of energy. Oh, no! The misclick! Oh, hero! Oh! It was a tenuous hold, maybe. But he misclicked shield battery overcharge. How do you even do that? What are your hotkeys? What sort of Xbox 360 controller are you using? Because you got to take it 360 degrees and walk away. It's a disaster. He has 0 probes and all of the problems. GG. Rogue with the long-range spine crawler rush ties up the series 1-1, and Hero was not prepared. Rogue breaks out one of the most finely curated cheeses against specifically here. You saw him looking for it. And despite the fact we're not on the new patch with its 8-worker start intended to create dynamic early game variety. That was sarcasm. I don't think it does that, and I don't like the 8-worker start, just to be clear. Just throwing that one in there for extra engagement, but even more so the more I play. But I digress. Rogue 1. Well, Hero, not to be outdone this time, he did not probe scout across the map. Would that have helped? I don't know. Because he was clearly looking for proxy. If he caught a glimpse any earlier, yeah, I think Hero witnessed the game. And it was already starting to tilt towards Rogue before the fateful misclick. But what a sausage-fingered play from the usually slapdash musician of Protoss. We've all been there. Every Protoss has done it, where they hit the recall or hit one of the buttons instead of the others. And it's super obvious when you do so, almost more than any other ability in the game. And that not only was obviously a mistake, but it drained the last bit of his energy he could have thrown into the shield batteries to help defend. Wild. So Rogue, clearly with a preference on the stage of the game he wants to focus on. But I don't blame him one bit. And blame is definitely the opposite of what I'd like there. Accolades, acclaim, respect, reverence even, for the commitment and the execution. If he had killed that creep tumor, I can't believe he didn't. I can't believe it's not butter, but no. Hero needed to get that first creep tumor. And there was a moment, I think, where he could have. He should have. But, and if you ask him, I think he said he would have. But no, the moment passed. And it only got more dramatic from there. The probe, out for blood. Surprisingly bloodthirsty for what I think is a robot, but as I've mentioned before, I really do hope that probes can feel pain. I think that's important. Like and subscribe if you agree. Stargate on the way. Hero. We're back on a more standardized map. One without such a circuitous path. So, a map much less likely to... Well, it's already way too late to be going for a proxy hatch or a one-base void ray. Well, void ray is still very much on the table, though. Or above the table, if you're going to be pedantic. The depths, hanging out in the trees. Probe stole some minerals, headed back home. Oracle is the choice, of course. The Swiss Army knife of Protoss. Hero. He's trying to make up for all the creep tumors he didn't snipe last game, but unfortunately, he gets none of them. And the Adept will have to walk on by. Does take a third base at 3.5 minutes, which is obscenely greedy, unless oracles exist, in which case it's just pretty much standard. Now, he doesn't have a second gate in the wall. That is what he cut out of this equation in order to get the Nexus a little bit quicker, but the risk-reward on building those extra Zerglings is just too much. Well, a Twilight Council quite quickly, even during the second Oracle, and adding one more gas, so this looking like a more focused timing. It's not just going to be glaives, is it? Because he does not have a forge on the way, and he's only getting... Ah, there's the second gas. Already some more gates in production. Slicing away some of the creep tumors. 4 gates before the Twilight even finishes. Blink. But a blink timing of sorts. Chrono boosting probes at the 3rd. Rogue actually has a bit of a lead. He's been able to shut down the Adepts, and Hero didn't focus much with the Oracles. It's a relatively comfortable spot as far as Zerg goes. Always on edge when it comes to dealing with Oracles and Adepts in the early game, but Hero's not going to be following up with the shady bunch of Adepts, which is quite common for Protoss. Adding another 3 or 4 and just hitting afterwards, but instead, he's gone straight to Blink. And already has a Templar Archives on the way, so it is a timing. The timing is much later down the line. I was incorrect. As Hero just going to sit back and build up. Maybe his confidence shaken? I doubt it. That's not really... Those are really not principles, I think, that can apply to Hero. That would imply he has a similar thought process to a normal human being, which I think is just patently untrue. But the Blink Stalker's on the way out. Hero has the worker lead. He's still building workers. Even while Rogue is clearly building up his Zerglings to deal with it, he's got a Spire on the way. No Hydralisk Den. Just a Mutalisk Den. So, Roaches with speed. Well, that's just not that many Stalkers. It's not too scary, but it must be dealt with. Blink is completed. The Oracles don't really have enough... Ah, triggers one of the stasis. The Oracles don't have too much energy to protect the Stalkers with. Only a couple seconds, so... He's trying to trigger the stasis! Oh no! It's about perfect for Hero. Catches just enough to make it difficult to actually surround the Stalkers. And if he can get home without having to use recall, I think he'd prefer it. But throughout all this, the simple fact that Rogue has not built anything but Zerglings. Zerglings do not cost Vespene gas. That is an incredibly important point, which means he's built up nearly 1,000 for the Spire completing, though the minerals are lagging just a little bit behind. 5 Mutas in production, and adding more. And Hero has absolutely no idea about it. He has not seen the Spire. He hasn't even seen the Roach Warren. Not that that's going to be very relevant. 12 Mutalisks. Quite a Mutarisk if Hero had suspected or seen it, but he's completely in the dark about this one. Come back to us, Star. +1 flyer attack. That means he's very committed to the Muta. It's not just a hit and run and switch into Hydras. The Mutas are the strat. There are 0 Phoenixes, which is not very many. The Muta's already going to work. 3 probes, and the Stalkers are stuck at home trying to defend. He hasn't even started a Phoenix yet. You just need Phoenixes. You do. Stalkers, terrestrially bound units aren't enough. Unless maybe you have like 12 Archons and it can attack right now. Which is certainly not the case. He's able to fight the Stalkers heads up. And the Mutas are putting as many Stalkers heads down as they're taking in turn. Rogue now has a 4th base and getting a 5th with a rich Vespene Geyser that mines twice as quick, allowing him even more, and he gets on top of the Templar! Oh no! 1 Archon merges. The Storms mildly inconvenience the Mutas. Picks off maybe 1. He's lost 2 thus far, but working on the Assimilator, forcing out the Storms is such a huge deal. Hero targets down 2. Still 0 Phoenixes in production. He's not going to fall for that trap. And is it a trap? It depends. Because if you go for Phoenixes, you become a lot more vulnerable to the almost inevitable Hydralisk. You're unlikely to get enough Phoenixes to really turn the tides. So Hero is just skipping them entirely and going to try to max out effectively on 3 bases. But Rogue, I think, anticipating it quite well. He's got Hydralisk range on the way. He's already building 14 Hydras. So even if Hero is able to defend against the Mutas, the Hydraling Bane ground army should be more than enough to deal with everything but a 200 supply Protoss. Though Hero's still climbing his way there. Another couple Mutas knocked out of the sky, but that means the Stalkers are still back at home. More slow warped in. The Archons and the Charge Lance. Baneling speed is not done yet. And not too many. 25 Banelings? Oh, they finished from the other side. Hydras and Lings. He realizes the Hydra switch has already begun. There's 1 storm. It's good. Not great, but a lot of the Banelings actually wading through. And, well, that gives maybe a chance to soften them up before they get any closer. The Mutas still flapping. Somehow Hero just ends up with like 20 cannons in every game he plays. He's got mass cannon, though it doesn't protect enough of the mineral line to really make the difference. He's going to go for the attack. Blinks forward into Banelings, which may have actually been the play he needed. But let's hesitate on calling him Shakespeare quite yet. The Mutas are coming back to defend. 14 of them. There's only 1 Archon remaining. The reinforcements are cut off. It's +1 attack across the board for Rogue. +2 for Hero. He's down 70 supply. A disaster. Still, probably the best he could have done, and not nearly well enough. Picks off 2-3 Templar. He wanted a storm, and that was too slow on the Archon. More Mutas will get knocked out of the sky, but losing the Templar, both for the potential storms and, more importantly, the potential Archon. Rogue is going to max out. Hero doesn't even know about the Rich Vespine base, which is probably why he's sitting back and pretending like he can deal with this, but the Zerglings will intercept the Zealots. The Hydras and Lings will reinforce. The Mutas, caught in the center. Hero will spot them and knock a few more out, but the purple upgrades are on the way. +2 attack for everything. Carapace not as useful when Storms and Archons are involved. The Banelings rolling in. Caught a little bit between a rock and a hard place. A Templar coming down. Blinks out of the most of the Banes. Needs another Archon merge. He gets it. The Hydras with a great concave, though. And he's distracted by the Mutas. Maybe 1 more storm. Not quite enough energy. Gets 1 picked off. Make that 2. The Banelings are still rolling. And the Protoss are hating. But that's not going to stop them. Banelings rolling into the mineral line. And the probes! Oh, no. 10 probes dead, and Hero fights to the bitter end. But it looks like Rogue, with his decisive Mutalisks, and Hero with a relatively timid attack timing, will be completely overrun, and Rogue will go to match point. Hero, a single Templar, not nearly enough. Another wave of Zealots. He fights till the very end, as a matter of principle. But it is the end, Hero. He agrees. Rogue, with a confident switch from the Mutas into the Hydras. He masked it well. He executed. He kept Hero bottled up. And by the time he finally broke out, he pushed him right back in. Rogue with a pretty textbook defense. Well, pretty textbook Muta into Hydra switch, and Hero just unable to find a timing. Which, Rogue's kind of got his number. Or so it seems. Even in game 1, Hero just keeping the pressure on. Rogue just never had an opportunity. But, after 2 in a row, the finely curated and artisanally prepared cheese, and then the, more sweeping Muta into Hydra Switch. Hero on the back foot. But you know what they say. Watching Hero is like opening a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. The Forrest Gumpian school of Protoss is not always successful. But I think it almost always is entertaining. It might be cut short. As rogues seem to have a better understanding than most on how to deal with it. Well, both successful games so far. He takes the initiative and never lets it go. You can't let Hero just be Hero. Whatever you do. Forcing the issue with the mutas and then being willing to just go. I don't think it necessarily was going to be mass muta to start. It just kind of worked out like that. Like sometimes 5 to 7 mutas and then switching to ground, but Hero just didn't build Phoenixes. So Rogue kept building mutas. And it's pretty easy to scout your opponent when you're flying through their base, killing all their probes. So you can get a pretty good gauge of when you need a stronger ground army based on using your eyes. Which are also something you can do to see where the like and subscribe buttons are. Give me, edit that out. We're gonna try a little harder. Well, metaphorically. Did he probe scout? No. What determines the probe scout? I don't... Is it vibes? Is it strategery? Is it the... Is Jupiter in retrograde? So, no probe scout at all. It looks like he didn't even... he checked maybe the outer edge of his base for hatcheries. And now is trying to intercept any Zerglings that might sneak around. But 2 games of probe scouting at the beginning of the game. 2 games of barely looking outside. The method to the madness is unclear. The Adept. Gonna pick away at some of the Zerglings. Shade back before being threatened. Zergling speed isn't too far off. And Hero gonna go somehow even quicker. 3 minutes and 20 seconds on the Nexus. Just barely slower than Rogue's own, which was not pressured at all. Nexi do cost more than the 275 mineral hatchery. 400 apiece. And they don't cost the worker when you build them, too. We can make an argument that a hatchery is 325 minerals, technically. You can make an argument that a hatchery is 325 minerals plus about 50 minerals to 60 minerals every minute until the end of time. As that's how much the drone would have mined. But I feel like that's getting a little bit too far into the weeds. Or maybe smoking too much of them. As Hero... The Oracle in the orange. But that's a freebie. Constellation prize. Picks off 1 drone. And... actually gonna burninate through the larva before the queens can reposition. Twilight Council, more gates. I hesitate to call this anything in particular. As, well, that's why. 1, the Twilight Council is the most ambiguous building in the game. You see a Twilight Council, and now you've narrowed down that they can go for Charge, Adept Glaives, Blink, Templar, Dark Templar. Why are they called Dark Templar and the other ones are just defaulted as Templar? That's a question for another day. Or it could just be upgrades. So there are 6 different things that require, especially a Zerg, up to 6 different responses. And you can kind of cover all your bases with certain ones, like getting a Roach Warren. But until you know exactly what you're dealing with, which is almost impossible to do before Lair Tech, You just have to hedge your bets. Take some educated guesses. Some calculated risks. And when it comes to facing Hero, it feels like a lot of people take calculated risks, but boy, are they bad at math. Hero with a charge lot Archon timing. But Rogue has no way of knowing that. Which is why it's so impressive he's just building up roaches anyways. Hero has 62 probes against 53 drones. I think, therefore I am, that Rogue was expecting something like a Adept Glaives. That would be the incentive to go for this so early on. And still, the charge lots, he has exactly 0 zealots as charge is finishing. Which is one way to mask your charge. By just simply building no charge lots. And that's a pretty big brain strategy there. Rattling around. And Rogue is going to go with the shrubbery strat yet again. He's got a spire and a... Well, he's got a Hydra's Den and then a spire behind. Keeping those options open as he goes for pretty much all of the lair tech. The first zealots will be warped in. And Hero... I think he successfully counted the drones, or at least got an idea. Just seeing the Roach Warren upgrading speed already means that the Zerg is going to lock in the lair tech. Roaches are a speed bump in your own economy as well. If you go for any amount of roaches with speed, that significantly slows down Hydras, it slows down Spire. It isn't a huge expense, but it is a slowdown, which means there's no reason not to sit back. Hero with the Oracles was very aware of all that. And how is that not a super pylon? Hero finds the most creative ways to create new inefficiencies. He's disruptive, okay? But even him, capital, builds disruptors. It's more of a metaphor and a buzzword. 8 Mutas on the way, but Rogue scrambling back there. 10 Mutalisks in production. He's gonna go Roach Muta to deal with Charge Lot Archon Templar. And it may work, but we have to ask ourselves that question. At what cost? He will suffer heavy losses. Either way here, the Mutas might be able to clean this up, but by the time they do, there's really just not that many scuttling feet on the ground. I can find more of my Dronely fans, but the storms on the Mutas, and then a few Archon merges, and there we are. He gets 2, he gets 3, and the Archons on their own might be enough to deal with the Mutas. There's barely any roaches. The 4th base is gone. The Mutas imploding as the Archons with overwhelming power, and the charge lots are slicing through the roaches. The Archon, this is a stronger push than we started with. The Archons after the storm. The anger after it. And Hero ties things up. We're not done that early. A decisive execution. And this time he was building Phoenixes, which is actually just a little offensive. Hero, really? Just in case. It was a different time. Okay, it was a different... He had a lot more leeway, but... I feel like sometimes he just ignores certain units because they're not as fun as doing certain things. Which... I've seen the comment, and I agree. I have the sneaking suspicion that Hero actually enjoys playing this game. Wild, right? But one more game. All tied up 2-2. Hero and Rogue back and forth. Both of them with some strong victories. And Rogue always seems to punch above his weight with certain players. It's just, like, he hasn't had the level of success. Technically, both Solar and Shin are ranked higher than Rogue overall. But Rogue has always been one of the most clutch players in the game. He might lose plenty of series to Clem, to Hero, to Maru, but then when it matters most, he steps up. And, but all of those, he's the last Zerg remaining in the GSL. Shin, Solar, I assume there's other Zergs in Korea, I just don't know who. I think Raynor played, but, all knocked out before the round of 4. The list of Zerg allies grows thin, but Only Rogue survived. And now, one game will decide whether he continues his ride or if the end is nigh. We'll see if his build is extra sly. If the Protoss will find a way to cry. Or if it's the Zerg who are more likely to die. Or if somehow this game ends in a tie. Things have gone totally awry. And causes me to continue to sigh. But I can't lie. I don't think that's likely. Oh my. The probe. Gimme, just... Probe Scout. Every other game, maybe. I didn't... He did not block the base, but he gets in well before any other tech. There's the Stargate. 5 out of 5 for Hero. Even the Spine Crawler Rush featured a Stargate as the most central tech, and the only tech, really. Rogue keeping all his hatcheries on his side of the map this time. And the drone out towards the third. Don't do it. He's gonna do it, right? Aw, he didn't have enough minerals for the pylon block. Disappointing. The very quick third base has been a mixed bag for Hero. He's just so greedy with it. Just doesn't even bother. Not that he's walling off as his strong suit, but just skipping. And really? Game 5, he's like, Void Ray. It's called Legacy of the Void Ray, not Legacy of the Oracle. It's not Loto. It's Lot V. Okay, well. Spore Crawler's on the way. What will he do the moment he sees the Void Ray? Now, does Hero send the... Does he kill the first Overlord? He does. Nice. Yikes. I don't... Sorry. Overlord melted away. Sorry for all the cats out there. Saw a couple comments about that. Psst, 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 psst. Sorry. An Oracle behind, but the Void Ray still hunting for Overlords. And again, this isn't the new patch, which means Overlords do have a movement speed. He's just casually strolling by because he has no cares. The Void Ray hanging out, just annoying everyone. Oracle comes in, racks up 1 kill. I think it was a Zergling or a Creep Tumor there. Third base is on the way. Lair relatively quickly here. Rogue opting for the Roach one yet again. Is he going to kill a drone with the... Sure. Void Ray with a soft lock-on. As long as it keeps going the same direction, the Void Ray will have effectively more range. But, you got to make sure it's facing the right way. Which is a little misleading because you still have to get into range to get that kind of lock-on ability. Oracle slices away another Creep Tumor. And behind it, we've got the Templar Archives charge +1 on the way. Oh, Rogue is doing a Queen Drop Rush. Which, well, it doesn't have to be. It does very much look like a German taxi build. With, well, the idea being bringing the Queens along so you have any anti-air without having to invest in Hydras or in a Spire, both of which are prohibitively expensive and take significantly longer than getting Overlord speed and a Dropper Lord. So here we go. And the anti-air, well, the anti-ground, the air anti-ground, oh my god. The Stargate units are a Void Ray and 2 Oracles, so a few Queens should be enough to deal with it. Unfortunately, this may be spotted. Is that a decoy? It's a fake! Was it supposed to be a fake? It's kind of unclear. That's the fake Overlord drop. He's now building a real Dropper Lord. Well, he may be abandoning this idea entirely. The creep spread is about halfway across the map. The Void Ray actually quite a good counter to this. Rogue is supply blocked. This is kind of trickling into a disaster. And this gave Hero all the time he needed. He's building 5 more cannons. He's got Storm nearly done. The time has passed, I think, to get this, to find success with this sort of attack. Still, quantity can have a quality all its own. There's a small Dropper Lord to the north. And Rogue is still building up the Roach count. Ravagers as well. Hero's gonna move out. A bold move. One of the only things that could backfire here, I think. But a single Zergling is in the natural, because of course it is. We'll check back in 2 years on that Nexus. Hero's attacking. Rogue has twice the army supply right now, because of course he does. So of course Hero's attacking. There's a cannon in the main, so that should defend against the Dropper Lords. Hero with oh no! Oh no! It's a disaster! The best possible stasis ward he could have ever dreamed of will just completely negate over 3/4. Well, doesn't matter if you have twice the army supply, if 3/4 of it has to sit there and watch. It's an utter disaster, and a humiliating one as well. The worst case scenario, Hero walks into a larger army, shuts it down, guts the economy, and he's going to be able to get back home and prepare for any sort of follow-up. It looks like the Zerglings killed the cannon, and it will cost them everything. That's it. Hero's still behind on supply, but it's roaches. It's roaches. That's nothing. Well, we'll see. Templar recharged. Oracles above will light up, and he actually turns around. The Queen count is down to 1. It's a disaster. Like, this Rogue clearly wanted to go for a Roach Queen timing. But Hero stopped it before it started. So then Rogue had to pretend like he was doing anything else. So Hero just attacked. And by all common wisdom and by basic math, that should never have worked. But those things have never applied to Hero. And they're not starting now. Oh, no. Of all the... Well, so the only hope here is... Well, where are these Overlords going? They don't even have drop. You can't fake it either. You have to turn them into Dropper Lords just to pretend. Not sure what the play... It looks like he wants to do a massive drop, but... Hero, again, with his, just his killer instinct. Somehow finding a path through with half the army and double the damage. He's moving forward. And Rogue gonna be hard-pressed to defend this, even if his entire army was back at home, which it certainly isn't. He's behind on economy. He's behind on, well, upgrades. Technically, the army supply is higher, but again, roaches. The cost of this army is just absolutely... The difference is stark. He's just melting through. The roaches in autumn colors. Blinks away. Immortal. Stranded. Not living up to its name, but doesn't even need to. The oracles are lighting it up. The Overlord's still hanging out in a shameful line. A warp prism is here. We can warp in another round. Some Templar trickling across. There's a 4th base. There's nothing else needed. Blunks forward, and Hero, in the most decisive game of the 5, will slice Rogue out of the tournament and move on to the finals. The 2nd season in a row. Hero left us hanging for a while. But Rogue telegraphed it like it was 1873, and Hero couldn't help but find an opportunity. Rogue almost in a best of 3. Well, he would have won. But Hero plays the full series, and I'm very glad to have seen it. And I certainly hope it made your day at least a little bit better. Thank you for watching. And if you got the means of motivation, it'd be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But your liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. And thank you to our Mule Tier patrons, bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin, Door, Kate, Crazy Mouse, Mario Suit. I'm glad you still enjoy. Make sure to check out this video. Jimmy picked it out just for you. And, well, I hope I made your day a little bit better. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Congratulations to Hero. Stay chill.
Hell, it's about